Hi, welcome back. In this video, we'll be solving React machine coding or front-end system design or interview question, which is very common, which is the autocomplete or typeahead component, right? So we'll be using ReactJS and we should only use vanilla CSS. We have been given mock data here, so I think we'll have to have an input element where we search for something, and which of these matches that, we'll have to return that and show it on the below the input element, and the time limit is 1 hour. Yeah, I have an empty index.tsx file and an empty autocomplete.css file. I can't use modules. I just have to use vanilla CSS, right? So the first thing that I'll be doing is disabling my completions on Copilot. I can do it in a code sandbox, but I choose to do it here. Yeah, this is a simple Vite application. I think you can see the dev script. Let us first run that and check. And I think all we have is a hello, because inside this we have hello. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I'll start the timer, and it needs in minutes, so I'm going to give 60, and it started it. Cool. I'll open this. I'll call the component as autocomplete. I'll keep adding the class names as we go. Autocomplete container AC. I will have an input of search as a type. We can have text also, but search gives us some additional benefits, so I'll be telling you what those are. The class name here is going to be AC input, right? So let us make this a control component. So by control component, we have, what I mean by control component is we have a state variable which is binded with the value and on change props of the input element, right? So on change, we are going to get an event which is going to be a react.change event. If you go there, yeah, we're going to set the query with that e dot target dot value. The target is going to be the input element, and value is the thing that is currently inside the input element, which is what we typed, right? So that is what we're going to set it back to the query. I don't need the React input. Yeah, we have this, and let us also create an asynchronous function called fetch suggestions, which is going to take in our query, right? And it is going to return a new promise. Promise, as all of us know, will have a resolve and a reject. What I'm going to do here is I am going to resolve. Let me create a constant, maybe inside this constants.ts. I'll call this as mock suggestions. I have it there. So I'll use the mock suggestions dot filter. So I'm just going to filter it, and each of them will call it a suggestion, and we're only going to return it if the suggestions lowercase. We don't want it to be case sensitive, so I'm making it dot lowercase. If that thing includes our query to lowercase, right? So this is what is going to happen. I will add a try catch here and log the error here and reject with that error, and this resolve part is going to go inside this. So basically this, what you need to understand here is we won't be returning a promise in the real code. We'll be using a fetch API where we have a query param which we'll have to send this query to, and yeah, that is it. This logic mostly will be on the backend side of it. It can be like that too. We never know. In some interviews, they might give you this complete function also, and they just ask you to go ahead and start with it. So yeah, I think fetch sessions, we pass in a string, and I want it to be strongly typed, so I'll call it this. I can also put it here to be very strict. So I have a promise of string array being returned to us. So I need some variable to store my suggestions, so I'll be calling them let me use keyboard shortcuts. So it's going to be suggestions and set suggestions, and it is going to be an empty array initially, and it is going to be the type of string, right? So let me show you how I would do it normally. So I'll be setting the suggestions here after I make the fetch suggestions call. So the fetch suggestions call, so points to note, you can't use query here because you're just setting it here, and it won't be updated by it comes to this line because we are just setting it here. And if you are above React version 18, all these callback, which whatever is inside the scope in any event handler or any callback that you have, all of them will be batched. So it is known as automatic batching. And to get out of automatic batching, we can use some nuances like flush sync and all of that, but it's not a good idea to discuss all of this with your interviewer, right? So what you ideally have to use here is going to be target value again, right? You can maybe extract this into a variable here and use it in the both things here, right? So I will make this as sync, and I'll call this results, and I'll await that, and I'll use the results and set it here, right? So this is going to be my search input, and this going to be my suggestions list. So what I will be doing here is, if I have suggestions, if the length is greater than 0, I'll be displaying something, or else I'll just go with null. Again, point number 2, you can use this, but it's not advisable, because at times if whatever you're showing here, if it is a JSX element, it's okay. But if you're using some function which is returning JSX and you're trying to put that here, and if in case it returns a boolean, you'll be seeing some weird 0 or 1 inside your DOM on the screen. So it's always a bad idea to do that. Instead, you can use this. Here you can add an empty fragment also if you want. So I'll call this AC suggestions. Can't see it through this. So I'll loop it here, all of them. So each suggestion is going to return something. I am going to make it a span, and I will use the suggestion here. Again, next point, which is very important, you need to always provide the key prop when you're looping through things. That is how React identifies one of these elements as unique from another. So it's always a good idea to have the key prop there, and probably I will have a class here also. AC suggestion item. We will style all of these at a time. Functionality first, styling next. I don't think your interviews will also be asking you to style it right away. So this should be a good idea. And since I'm running it, I need to update in my app.tsx to autocomplete, right? Yeah, so I have this. If I search for apple, I get apple, and yeah, it's horrible as of now. You get banana, everything. Nice. So before I go with all this is now really bad code, okay? This is not the thing that you need to be submitting to your interviewer and saying that you're done. So before going there, I think I will just add some basic styling here and there. I think first one is AC container. So align items center, justify content center. Probably I won't be giving justify content, I'm not sure. Let us see. And no height as of now. Okay, so this is going to be my container, and yeah, margin inline is going to be auto width is going to be 300 pixels. Yeah, I know. I did not import it. I am just wondering why it was happening. And yeah, I need to import my CSS, and yeah, I think we're done. So inside this, wherever we have AC input, inside the AC container, I will be giving padding inline of 8 pixels, padding block of 4 pixels, which is top and bottom and left and right, and font size of 16 pixels, right? Width of 100% because the container is 300 pixels, so I think that looks good. And I'll remove whatever outline and border we have, tell you why, and add a border radius of 8 pixels. And I don't know if I can do this. Let me see, right? So Outline is 1 pixel, solid, lime green. No, I can't do this. So it's going to be AC input and it comes out of this, right? Yeah, beautiful. I can add some transitions and all. I'm not going to waste time on all of that, right? Now, the next thing to style, we are done with the input. We have suggestions, which is yet another flex container. Gap is 4 pixels. I will give a gap of 8 pixels between the input and the container. So I hope that is fine. This should be start probably. No? Or this should be start. Oh yeah, I know what is going on. I'll tell you. So let us give it a background. Or, oh, sorry. 1C, 1C, 1C. Yeah. So I should give it a width of 100% to take in the complete thing. And now I think if I make this a start, this will come here. Beautiful. So inside this, I have suggestion item and padding inline is going to be 8 pixels. Padding block is going to be 6 pixels. Beautiful. Let me give this border radius of 8 pixels too, and maybe a border of 1 pixel solid white. All right. Too much? I don't care. You know what? I think I will do that instead. Yeah, that looks a little better. I will give padding of 4 rem to the complete thing. Okay, so I want this container to be having a max height of 350 pixels. It shouldn't go greater than that, and that is why I'll have an overflow Y of auto. That is how I get the scroll bar. So overflow auto means when I try to scroll, I see the scroll bar, but if I give it a scroll, I think, if I'm not wrong, we'll always have the scroll bar. I don't know the difference, but something of that sort. Font size works. Beautiful. And I think on hover of this, I'll make the background color, I don't know, man. What did I give here? 1C. So 1A, 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 maybe. No, that doesn't work. That's bad. Is it too dark? Yeah, okay, that works. So again, with 100%, I think we'll get a horizontal scroll. Of course we will. I can give an overflow X of hidden. Now we're good. Maybe I'll make these 12 and 8. That looks extremely good. I won't give the font size maybe. Is it starting with potatoes? I don't think it's starting with potatoes, right? Okay, I will give a padding of 4 pixels all around, which it is not considering, by the way. Okay, let's see. I won't be wasting much time on styling here. Cursor pointer, so that I can click on these, and border radius 8 pixels. Yeah, that works. Maybe I shouldn't give width 100% here and get rid of justify content. Stretch doesn't work. What does end do? End doesn't work. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead with this. Is just to avoid the scroll. Pretty bad solution, I know, but yeah. But okay, so I think this more than enough. So if you observe, I think I'll have the input also have some 16 and 12. Yeah, that looks better. So the input is having done. So I think we are good. Now the problem with this, I'm going to show you what the problem with this is going to be. I seriously don't like 100% here. What is wrong with this? Why am I getting, if I used to span, why am I getting this? What? I think I'll make this 300 pixels too. Hardcode the width there. Here probably I shouldn't be doing it. It's not that. It's not that. Missing something, man. Missing something. Don't know what it is, but bugging me. Here should it be stretch? Haha, yeah. Okay, got it. Nice. That works. Now let me just check 100% here. Beautiful. That works. Okay. This is okay, but I just don't want to see, if I click outside it should go away, and when the query is empty I don't want to see anything. I want to see something when I focus on it. And also by adding search type of input type of search, this is the benefit that we get. You can click on this and it will go away, and you can also press escape and it will go away. So let us handle this case by case. What we need to do is on the focus and on blur of these things, I will take in another state variable called show suggestions. Man, what is wrong with this extension? So by default it is going to be false, and on focus we'll make it true, and on blur we'll make it false, right? And all of this is again going to be inside a fragment, and we'll only have it if show suggestions is there, which when we are trying to focus on it should work. There is some issue, I don't know what that is. Okay, this is fine, we don't need to have this. So when you focus and search for something, you get it. When I click outside it goes, when I click again it comes, right? So if you observe, if I refresh, when I don't have the data with me, when I focus I'm not able to see it, but I should be able to see it, the results, the first call. So I think I'll make the first call here, this one, and set the suggestions inside this, inside on focus also. If my suggestions dot length is 0, I'll do this, right? So on focus is going to be an async function. This is going to be whatever the query is at that time, right? So I don't have anything. So if you see, I refreshed, I clicked, and I immediately got it, right? Now this is handling it, by the way. So even when I have it and you can see that I have apples, I come out and all of this is handled. Now let's come to the second part of it, which is what if our network requests are a little different. Let us simulate how the latencies of the network will be, and let us use math.random here, and since it returns a number between 0 to 1, I will multiply it with 1000 so that I get it somewhere in between 1 second, and inside this we are going to resolve it, right? So now my network requests are completely, yeah, we don't know what is going to happen. That double results, we get previous queries results, because on every keystroke we are firing this request, right? So if you see fetch suggestions, wherever we are calling it, if you see the network request of this, it should go in when I click there. But for Apple, 5 keystrokes, 5 times the network request is going in, and you see APE or something AP, that is the query that we try to make before getting into PLE, the next set of keystrokes, but that resolved later than what we did for Apple, right? So our latest query is Apple, but when we did for AP, that probably had math.random into 1000 as 1 second, and it resolved a little later. But Apple's had around maybe 100 milliseconds, because it is random. The latencies, you don't know what will, it's realistic trying to mimic it. Maybe this, the old query resolved later than the newer one, so this is a race condition, and we should probably not having that, right? So these are the set of problems that we have when we are making too many requests, and also there might be a race condition. So how do we solve it? The first approach is to debounce the calls that we have here, the number of calls that we are making it here. So we don't need to make a call on every keystroke. Probably we can do it by debouncing it, right? So I will create a custom hook for that. Use debounced value. It takes in a query, which is a string, right? And it has a state variable called debounced value, and that initial value will be feeding it with query, right? And what we're normally going to return the debounced value. But how are we making sure that this use debounced value, okay, but how are we making sure that this use debounced value is going to set this debounced value not every time we get this query, but on a limit? So the basic way to do it is by using a timeout, right? So the timeout will happen after some given milliseconds. So I will take that as a parameter. It's good practice. By default, I'll make it 300 milliseconds, right? So inside this, we are going to set the debounced value to the new query. So for example, if I type in APLE very quick, there is no 300 milliseconds gap between each keystroke. So the set debounced value won't be set because the previous one is not cancelled yet. The previous timeout has not been done yet. So how do we, only after having Apple, we give it a pause, 300 milliseconds have passed by, and that is why the debounced value will be set and the updated value will be returned out of the hook. But since set timeout is a side effect, we should be calling it ideally inside use effect, which I got import now and put it here. And let us be good citizens and get the timeout ID, because this is very important if you don't want to have any memory leaks in your application, right? So we'll be using the clear timeout with that ID, right? So what is actually happening here is we type in A. We will be typing in Apple without any gap between the keystrokes, but I'll come later. We'll be typing A. It comes here. It tries to set it after 300 milliseconds have passed by, but immediately, since we are pressing P, we again invoke this function. We get in the query as AP this time, and use effects cleanup function identifies that this prop has changed, so it will have to re-render. And that is why before re-rendering, before unmounting of the hook or before unmounting of the component, the cleanup function of use effect runs will be clearing the previous timeout, and the state update won't happen, right? Now it will try to update with AP after 300 milliseconds, but even before that 300 milliseconds, we get the next set of keystrokes, which is P and L and E. After only this loop runs till we type in Apple completely, and after E is done, since we are not unmounting it till then because we don't have another latest updated query, the debounced value will now be set to Apple and it will be returned down. And to invoke this use effect on every keystroke, we need to have query here. Ideally, this should be enough if we are not outsourcing timeout as a prop, but since we are also having our timeout as a prop, we need to add that too. So now we can use this debounced query here, and it is called as debounced query, use debounced query, and we'll be passing in the query here, right? So this debounced query is what we need to pass to the, to the fetch suggestions function here. Now, we don't need to use a hook and get the debounce query. We can call that set timeout inside here and make this part inside the timeout and this part out of it. That works too. But as I told you, this is actually a pretty bad idea to do it, especially after React 18, because these are going to batch, and you might at times, if there are extremely huge number of latencies here when we are trying to type something, since now we don't have that much of latency here, you can see that as I am typing, you can see the input box being updated on real time. But if this is a very long list and if the network requests are very slow, then what happens is you type in apple, but you don't see the input box having the string apple inside it immediately. It'll only be getting there after the component re-rendering is happening. React 19 and 18 solves this by using something called as transitions and concurrent mode, and hooks like use deferred value, use transition. And since it is involved with an async await and network request, since what we'll be getting back is a promise, you can also use suspense and all of that. But it's not a very good idea, at least in 2025, to use this approach in an interview, because at least make sure that your interview knows about all the stuff before you jump into those solutions, right? So what I would suggest is use a use effect. I know, bad idea, but can't help it. Got to do what I got to do. So I will create an async function here. I can call it create an iffy, but in source maps and while debugging, ifs might misbehave. I'll call it fetch results, right? So here, instead of passing query, so if I had a use effect and if I'm passing query here, and this will run on every query, and I will immediately invoke the fetch results here. This is nothing but what we had inside this. Both of them are the same, but at least I can show you that, right? But if I use debounce query here, and I only re-render the component if my debounce query is updating and not on the original one, now you can see after only typing apple, I get only one fat API, right? So that is how debouncing works, and you're basically reducing the number of API calls that you're making and all of that, right? So your first problem is solved. You are a little efficient, not completely, but yeah, it's good. Now, before I get into having other things regarding this, the race condition and everything, I think I will go ahead and add a loading state also. Initially will be false. Maybe I'll wrap this in a try catch again. This part will be here. So before firing the API call, I'll make it as true, and in the finally block, good lord, I'll set the loading as false, right? This works, and I can have my error logged here. Yeah, I think this should be good enough. And now what I want to display here is, okay, so show suggestions is okay. If the length is greater than 0 and if it is not loading, only then we display this. I probably would require this somewhere outer. Interesting. Let's try doing this, maybe. Yeah, I think this is far better because I can reuse the same thing. So this is our happy path. But what if you're still loading, right? Well, then what are you going to show? So that is going to be when you're loading, I will be showing a span of loading. You can add a spinner or whatever BS you want here. Now, empty states. Handling empty states is also a good thing when you go into interviews. So it is not loading, but your results or your suggestions, the length is equals to 0. That means you don't have any results for that thing, right? Oh, good lord, why are you here all this time? Okay. Again, a span, and I'll call this no results found. Beautiful. So if I type some gibberish, I should see no results found. I can probably style it a little better. Since I'm having max height, I'll maybe have a min height of 100 pixels too, and I will have AC empty or loading. This will have a display of block, align self center, justify self center. I don't know, I'm just giving random values here. Let's see if it works or not. Apparently it doesn't. I thought it'll come in the center of here, but it doesn't. I honestly don't care, to be really honest. Maybe I can give it a height of 100% and flex grow of 1. Does that work? That also doesn't work. Never mind. I don't think I will. Did I add something over here? No. Okay, I don't think I'll handle that, but that's okay. At least you're having a loading state and results found state. That's great. So yeah, now the second thing is the network request, right? So Apple is okay. Let us go with PE, right? Where is Apple? Oh, Apple doesn't have that one, correct. But yeah, I think you saw the case previously that it was having that issue where the race condition was set. So how do you solve it? Basically, you can have a Boolean flag, and every time this is re-rendering, that is the debounce query is also updating. You are getting a new API call, you're making a new API call, and you probably want to cancel the previous one if you're making this. So wherever you're setting the state, before setting the state, you will check if that Boolean flag is true, which will be called ignore or something. And if it is ignored, that means you should probably not set it and go for the next cleanup thing. And in the effect cleanup of this thing, you'll have to keep setting it back to false, right? That is one way. Another way is to use an abort controller, which is probably mostly the thing you need to do, because generally speaking, I think you will be using a fetch API, as I told you here, or Axios or something with a query param here, and the APIs will accept a signal, abort controller signal, right? It's always a good idea to create an abort controller inside a ref, right? Because you don't want to recreate it across your request. The initial value of it is going to be null, right? So what are you going to do here is, first and foremost, when we are trying to make a new request, you probably want to cancel it, right? So you'll fire abort inside this one, but this doesn't have an active value, right? So to add an active value to that, we will be creating controller ref.current equals to new abort controller here, right? So every time we are making a new request, we create a new abort controller and we attach it to the promise that we have. So you should be passing the signal to this, which is of the type abort signal. So I'll come here, accept the next param as abort signal. So what I'm going to do here is, before I resolve and get into the set timeout and all, if it is gone, if the signal is aborted, I'm just going to reject it straight away. Stale request rejected. That's all. This should be done. But this probably is a bad idea. Signal.aborted, we probably shouldn't use it like that. Another good way to use it is to add an event listener of abort and call this reject inside that. Okay, because signal accepts event listeners or abort, and you can use that. I think we can also do this, if I'm not wrong, on abort. Right, here also you can reject. These both are probably the same thing. On abort will be the same thing here, so it's okay, it's fine. This is good as far as what I know. Okay, yeah, so here we should be passing, here also we should be passing our controller ref.current.signal, right, which probably is undefined. I guess that is okay. If we don't have it, I think I will make it optional. And yeah, this should work. If we have it only, we are trying to cancel the request. If we don't have it, it doesn't matter, because on the initial focus of this thing, we don't probably need to have an abort request, right? So in the finally block of this, I think you will have to make it null. right? Yeah, here we'll have to make it null so that by the next time we are coming here, we will be able to create a new abort controller and not reuse the same one that we have. Yeah, so now if I'm not wrong, I think we will be seeing a lot of cancellation requests here. Fired API. I typed a little slow, lesser than our debounced input thing, and we got stale request rejected, at least in one place, right? So this is a nice way to cancel your previous request and always use the latest ones so that stale data won't be resolved after the latest data that you want, right? And we always get the latest ones. Beautiful. This looks good. Now I will be removing some console logs because it is a little confusing. Apart from these, I don't want anything else. So fetch suggestions is good, debounce value is good, everything is good. But let us do one thing. Let us search for Apple. It is loading and we get that. I press escape, it goes. It again loads. Initially we had all of these values, but it again made that call. We got all of this. Now I search for Apple again and it again is loading. So basically it is firing that API call even when it is not required, because you should probably have it on a cache and store it somewhere, right? So maybe what you can do is have another state variable called cache, and it will be of the type map. It will be of the type map because the search query, which is the debounced query, Apple, is going to be the key, and the value is going to be your search results, which is all the array of things, right? So it's going to be the key is this and the value is this, and initially it will be an empty map, right? So the cache inside cache, we have that. So every time we are getting new results here, we'll also set the cache to the results. Right? Oh no, every time we get that, what we are going to do is we'll take the previous cache and we'll return a new map and give it the previous cache, and we probably will set our, I don't know, okay, so set takes in debounced query and the value is going to be results, right? Yeah, so what we are going, this is a little bit of functional programming immutability BS going on here. So what we are going to do is on every time we get new results here, we are going to create a new map where we pass in the old cache, but we are going to add a new key. And even if this, for example, I search for Apple the second time, it's okay because we're going to get the same results anyway. Or so the cache is, we have the cache, but how are you going to use it? So I think I'm going to move this guy over here, and even before going into that try catch block and all of that, if cache has got your debounced query, you probably need to set your suggestions to cache dot get of debounced query, right? What is the issue? String or undefined. Okay, if it is undefined, we'll be setting in an empty thing, right? So now this I will show you. It's called a cache hit, right? And here it's called a cache miss. So if it is already having in the cache, you probably don't need to make the API request, create an abort controller, add the signal, all of that. It's not required. You already have it with you, so you can use it. Where else do I need to set? Yeah, I think here also I need to set the cache to my results. Oh, stupid. Yeah, I probably can take that into a function, update cache or something of that sort, and call this there, but that's okay. Or I can also have it in a completely different module, JavaScript module. Now this is complaining because we are trying to use cache inside this and it doesn't know if the state variable's value is updated or not. It should be inside the dependency array for that. So yeah, now let us check if we have a cache miss or cache hit. So initially we'll have, this is inside an infinite loop because we are not returning. We should only return here, right? We should. And loading also, I think I'm setting it here, so it shouldn't be a problem. Yeah. So this is just, don't worry about this. This is React strict mode. Renders, unmounts, and re-renders your component to check if there are any memory leaks. I think we are good. So if I go for Apple, you see there is a cache miss. Obviously, since we are in strict mode, the effect will run twice. This is another issue where I told I probably won't use an effect and go with the concurrent mode and suspense and all of that, transitions and stuff. But this is also fine because, as I told you, interviews, You need to check with that if they are capable enough to understand all of these things, or else they'll think that probably you're speaking something which doesn't make any sense. So it's better to, at least in 2025, right? So yeah, I think now the cache is hit. So if I go back now, I didn't have it, so it again has a cache miss. APPL doesn't have the data with it. Now if I completely get rid of it, you immediately see that I get the results back and the cache is hit, because when I focused on the input, I made the request and I set my cache. And if I search for Apple, again the cache is hit because you get it, right? I probably need to, I'll extract this into another function. I'll tell you why. So whatever we have there, right? So update cache, which I am going to call here with my results. Copy that line probably and put it here also. Now the problem with this can be, yeah, I know this is using callback and that's okay. It needs to be in a callback because we're putting it inside an effect, and effect dependencies, since this is a function, it'll get a new reference every time the component mounts and all that. Initially you had debounced query here, and now you don't need to. That's all. That's the only part. What I wanted to do is, while I'm setting this here, I will make it to lowercase, right? That is important because if I search for capital A apple or small a apple, the cache should immediately react accordingly. It shouldn't consider that those both as different strings. I don't want them to be case sensitive. So yeah, I think this is mostly it. Probably we are in an infinite loop somewhere. What is happening? Update cache. We are setting the cache with a new map. We are getting the previous one. We're setting it. Debounced query. That's the key, and we're getting the results here. This order shouldn't matter, to be really honest. There is some sort of infinite loop going on. I don't know what that is. Oh, this is a bad idea. I did not realize that. Okay, let us see. Debounced query cannot have... Is it because it is returning a new string? And okay, let's do one thing. Apples, it loaded. Small apples, it is again loaded. Okay, fine. I guess I can live with that. It's okay. So this is one thing. Now coming to, I think we still have 10 minutes left. So what can I do apart from this? Maybe I can style the focus state. Okay, as soon as I press tab, you can see that the focus state is good, but when I press down arrow, it is not going down here and it is not focusing these. And I know why that is happening, but I don't know if I should make these buttons only for that, because then they're going to look terrible. Probably okay, or transparent initially, and I disabled all the border, all of that, right? Border none, outline none, right? This is a problem. Okay, you know what? This is okay, but I probably won't make these buttons. I should, but I will give it a role of button instead, right? And an area label of the suggestion so that I know what is happening. And I will give it a tab index of 0 so that when I tab, oh, it is going out of it. Should I give it 1? I'm not sure. Okay, so let us do one thing. I have 9 minutes left. I think I will be able to finish this. Let us see. On pointer up is the event. I think I should be using on pointer up. It's going to be a React pointer event. So what I can do is I can stop the default propagation if e dot, how do we search for tab key? Code. I don't remember. Good lord. Button and buttons. Huh. Should I use that? Meta key. I think it's meta key, right? No? Maybe it's not pointed up. Maybe it's pointed down. Let us see. So inside the use effect that we already have here, can I register that is what I'm thinking. Document dot add event listener. Oh, key down, man. Oh, that's bad. So it's going to be key down, not pointer down. On key down, it's going to be a keyboard event. So that is what, man. So it's going to be key is going to be arrow down, or I'm assuming meta key, but let's see. It's okay. Keys. Right? So key down, I'm going to put it here. Probably won't work because this issue event listener. Okay, you know what? Okay, I should not import this from React. That is the issue. Yep, got it. So you should have practice with all of this because you probably won't have, you will be doing it inside code sandbox and you won't be having this intelligence and all of that, right? 5 minutes left. Come on, you can do it. So let's see. Okay, right key. Tab is right key. Space is not the right key. Cool, that works. So what I can do is, since I am inside this, I want to focus into the first one inside these, right? I gave it a tab index of 0, but it's still not working. Interesting. Can I use a ref? If I use a ref, I can't even use a ref because this is inside a map. I can't have ref for all of them individually. Did I use? Yeah, I used a key. Should I have an ID also? When I click on that, it is closing. And probably on click of this, I should give to set the query as this suggestion, right? That is the final thing that we want to have, right? You search for app, you got apples, you click on it. It's not working. Interesting. I think even before that is happening, this is happening. Oh, I know how to do this. Bro, I think I know how to do this. So 3 minutes. Come on, Raul. Come on. I have this. Let me give ID to this as AC suggestions. When you're blurring out of it, if e dot contains, return true if other is an inclusive descendant of the node. Yep, this is what I want. Document dot query selector AC suggestion. So I'm going to return. Not working. Probably this should be target. I have AC suggestions here. When I come here, does my dot target contains returns true if other is an inclusive descendant of node. Node is R1, which is this target, which is oh, not this, man, not this. I should probably have the focus and blur on that, probably. I'm not sure, because input is not a parent of this suggestions, right? It's a sibling of it. So instead of e.target, can I use, I don't think this is going to work though. Yeah, probably won't work. Say stuff like, yeah. Let us check. Oh, it's working. Oh no, it's not working. Nope. Yeah, I think it can't identify all this. I can use refs actually. Can use refs. Container ref. HTML div element. Initially null because we are going to assign it to this guy over here. Instead of ID, I can pass it this, and here while I'm doing this, I don't need to check for all of this. I can go with container ref dot current dot contains, right? And probably here also I can have suggestions ref, and I think I'm out of time. That's fine. Pulled it off till here, so I guess that's okay. Yeah, this also is not working. There is something called closest. Returns the first inclusive ancestor that matches. Okay, what is closest? It takes in a selector. Yeah, time's up. Yikes. I'll use the class name here. Shouldn't matter much. Oh. Yeah, probably maybe I should have focus of this input as the div itself and use some hook like imperative handle and all of that. Now, okay, I think time's up. So most of it was solved. We added caching, we used the right keys, React keys wherever it is required. We simulated network latencies, we used Abort controllers and signals, and we added debouncing. We created a custom hook for it. We saw how to use a map like data structure instead of normal objects and arrays and all of that. So this is not perfect. This is not going to be your production code if you get the job. But if you pull it off till here, I think you may be passing that round because the styling is also all right. So what I would suggest is, again, the same points, that analyze the company that you're appearing for and try to understand if they are in the constant loop of updating their code base to new principles, how the engineers are there, and based on that your answers will vary. So you can't just give the generic response of, I'll probably use suspense here, and if they don't know what that means, maybe you're doomed. Even if this is not how you probably will be writing production code, like interview code is not equals to production code. They want to test things like this in an interview to understand your optimization techniques and all of that. Because to be very frank, I don't think we'll be using use effect based API async fetching. We'll be using some library like TanStack Query or SWR or Redux Toolkit or something, which will have inbuilt caching. So you probably don't need to have your own cache. So most of this will be nullified when you get into your production code. But I guess this is a good start, whatever you have there, right? So I have a list of things. So we did the styling with vanilla CSS, the easy parts we added the mock async function. We did not handle the error case. Probably you should do that, have an error case. And however, we did the mock math.random into 1000 for mocking the API latency. Maybe you'll also use math.random If it is greater than 0.5, you should go with the normal function. If it is less than 0.5, you throw an error or reject the promise, because your APIs might fail at times. And I don't think it is required, but that's fine. You can add it if they ask you to. And loading in error states. And then coming to enhancements, I added debouncing, I added request cancellation, I added a cache using the map. Keyboard navigation, I tried, almost done it, but didn't do it. I think I added hover and focus visible states and all of that. I told you about some side effects of using React batching, and probably why you shouldn't use it, because your input won't be interactive enough. The state update won't be immediately done. So to mark it as an urgent update, React has come up in React 19 and 18 with concurrent mode and use transition and all of that. But yeah, the same issue goes there. And I also told how effect can be a bad idea, because you saw after refresh every time you were seeing cache hit, cache miss and all of that, which probably shouldn't happen until and unless you make your first API call. Yeah, effect will have its own issues. And another problem with effect is that you are making this API call no matter what. So it should be a reaction. The API call should be a reaction to some action, like focusing on the input or typing something. That should be the reaction. But it's not a reaction here. As soon as the component mounts, it's happening. So that's a drawback. So maybe that's why you shouldn't use effect. I think I split it into multiple components and styling and custom hooks for debounce and all of that. And I think I also gave explanations for things like side effects, cleanup functions. I'm not saying this is not a checklist for me to do it in the tutorial. This is a checklist, probably what you should be speaking to your interviewer as you're writing this code, right? Because the more you talk and be interactive and keep them in the loop of your coding session, the better the results will be. So you probably need to talk about all of this and implement all of this, and I think you're golden. Yeah, let's meet in the next video with another interesting React machine coding question. So until then, let's meet again. Good. Bye bye.